Don't be surprised if Charles Oliveira beats Ilia Topuria at UFC 317 this weekend. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it could happen. Oliveira has a very clear path to victory against someone who it seems like it's absolutely destiny that they're heading for a second title. So, like, Ilia Topuria, he's a great fighter, and he is on a magnificent run, yes. But there's something up about this fight. Something that I feel is kind of funky, and I'm like, maybe we might be on an upset alert for Topuria here. Now, again, I think Ilia wins, but I would not be surprised in the least bit if Dub Bronx Charles Oliveira, the champion, has a name, and his name is Charles Oliveira himself, gets the wins. My real biggest concern is, how is Ilia Topuria going to handle this extra weight? Now, he has been out for some time. It's been a few months since he last knocked out Max Holloway and ripped everyone's heart out of their chest. I mean, first of all, that knockout was pretty sick. I can't lie. As much as I love Max Holloway, and I hated the fact that it was him that had to be on the receiving end of such a vicious knockout. Same thing with his Alexander Volkanovski knockout. Regardless, you get what I'm saying. Like, Topuria is legit. And coming from featherweight, probably the division that makes the best champions, I really want to see how he does handle this weight moving up. We've seen him handle it once. His power, it translates. Granted, it was against Jai Herbert. He did get hurt in that fight. Don't forget, he got hurt. That is my biggest concern. Now, I'm not saying Charles, he definitely has knockout power, and he will be able to go in there and knock out Ilia Topuria. But that said, I don't think it's necessarily Charles finding the left hook like he did against Michael Chandler to put Ilia Topuria away. Instead, I think this type of a fight is going to be a fight that's fought along the fence and in the clinch. So if Charles Oliveira, who's a bigger fighter, can push Ilia Topuria against the cage. Keep in mind, yeah, Oliveira fought at 45, but he was never really a true 45er. He was a 55er. And Topuria's coming up in a relatively short amount of time. Oh, he could just put on 10 pounds of muscle. Not that easy, Jack. So I really want to see if Charles Oliveira can just press him against the cage. If Charles Oliveira can just knee him in the body, that will be his best path to victory. I think Charles Oliveira is a really good case to beat Ilia Topuria. I do think he has a good shot. Not as good of a shot as, say, an Islam Makhachev or even like an Arman Saryukin, but I think Charles Oliveira is the next best. Paddy, maybe? I mean, not really, because Paddy leaves his chin high, but that's the same problem that Charles Oliveira has. You know, so in the clinch, like, he's going to have to hold on to these positions for a long time. 2-3 minutes. But Topuria just needs one shot to knock out Charles Oliveira. If Charles Oliveira exits the clinch with his chin high, like he tends to do, if he does that, it will spell disaster. Topuria loves coming over with a right, over the top. And if Oliveira's guard is long, chin is up, it's right there for the taking. That's why I think Paddy Pimblett, like, he leaves his chin really high. Now, the new kick game meta, I don't know how Paddy would handle against Topuria. I obviously lean Ilia Topuria heavily. But I'm not counting Paddy the baddie out. I think, though, the clinch game is where it's at. But also, entering the clinch at Charles Oliveira's own, like, on his own accords. How does he do that? Well, first of all, Charles Oliveira has a really good snap kick, a front kick, a teep, whatever you want to call it, to the midsection. And it is punishing. Topuria is not going to have as much of a height advantage in this fight. Not that he's ever enjoyed it. He's done well to minimize that by, being really good at boxing, moving his head well. I think if Oliveira can just start stabbing his legs and stabbing his body, that can really give him a shot to enter the clinch at his own exchange. That'll put in the mind of Ilia Topuria, like, man, I need to know when I can get in here, and I just can't get in here. So if he can get the front kicks going, if he can get to the clinch, if he can get to the ground, God forbid, if he gets to the ground, Ilia Topuria is going to be in trouble. I mean, we know Charles Oliveira's hellacious on the ground, especially when he's in control. Now, like, if Ilia Topuria, if he gets him down to the ground, And we'll see Charles Oliveira do his typical, oh, look, here's an armbar. You don't want me cranking the armbar, right? Oh, you got up, I can scramble now. That's how he does. And he does a good job of that. I do think, though, that Charles Oliveira has a more than 25% shot to beat Ilia Topuria this weekend at UFC, 317. I do. And that concerns me because Topuria is good for the sport. He's a future superstar, especially if he can win this second title. Now, when Ilia Topuria is approaching this Charles Oliveira fight, obviously we need to be targeting the chin that he leaves up hanging high. We need to be targeting that. Charles Oliveira, he gets rocked. And Oliveira's never fought anybody with power like Topuria. Maybe Islam. Maybe Islam has that power, but we don't really credit him for that, for just being such a hellacious grappler. But if Topuria can catch Oliveira in one of these exchanges, Oliveira, exiting badly or clinching or trying to clinch, reaching, and he can leap in with a huge overhand or a huge lead hook, he could put out Charles Oliveira's lights. Now, Topuria, UFC superfan always says Topuria's never thrown a head or a body kick. Yes, that's true, but he throws a lot of low kicks. This fight, wax him. Don't do it. Do not do it. Charles Oliveira checks low kicks a lot, and that's how he's going to be able to get in there on the low kick. He's going to check, he's going to step in, he's going to grab you and start kneeing you to the body. Knees to the body for Ilia Topuria with this new weight class is going to be the worst. It's going to be terrible. It seems like Ilia Topuria has a date with destiny, right? But again, if Charles Oliveira beats him up in the clinch, don't be surprised. Especially if it goes the distance, if you get to rounds 4 and 5 with the new weight, the body work from Charles Oliveira, expect it. Also expect great body work from Ilia Topuria. But this fight, man, I can't get enough of it. Now, don't click away for what I'm about to say, but Aleksandre Pantoja might actually be a 125 GOAT. And I know there's blasphemy because it's, Demetrious Johnson and such, but I got this sneaky feeling that I keep saying Aleksandre Pantoja is building a better resume with better fighters. He's fighting Kai Kara-France this weekend, if you couldn't tell. He's already beat Kai Kara-France on The Ultimate Fighter. He's already cleaned out his division. He looked unstoppable against Kai Asakura, but that's because Asakura is not very great on the ground. He struggled against Brandon Royval, Steve Erceg, and Brandon Moreno. He let those guys hang around a little too long. He can't do that with Kai Kara-France. Now, Kai Kara-France, his last big win, the one that got him the shot to the title, he lost to Amir Albazi. He probably should have won that fight, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But the knockout of Steve Erceg, where he steps through and throws a huge, I think he was left, so orthodox, steps through southpaw and then comes up with a huge overhand rear left after he stepped through. Kind of like Masvidal did a little bit with Darren Till, but a little more deliberate. I think Dustin Poirier shift, but more devastating. Pantoja's going to be ready for that. He is, and he's incredibly durable. He takes a beating. Takes a beating well. He wears it not very well. He looks rough after all of his fights almost. I was surprised he didn't look worse against Kai Asakura, but he handily dominated that fight. The real question going into this fight is going to be, can Kai Kara-France handle the wrestling of Aleksandre Pantoja? And nothing he's shown me leads me to believe, yes, he can. So he's fought Royval, Erceg, and Moreno, and those guys never got their wrestling going. But Amir Albazi controlled him for 6 minutes of a 3-minute fight. I don't rate Amir Albazi very high. I think Amir Albazi does a lot of things that is great, but I don't think he is among the division's elite. He's got an opportunistic win over Alex Perez, and we saw Brandon Moreno, a little bit older Brandon Moreno, work him over. The fact that Kai Kara-France was so close with him, which is crazy because Kara-France did a great job counter wrestling Askar Askarov, who's a really good wrestler, no longer in the UFC because he couldn't get a fight. The fact that he shouldn't have lost that fight, against Amir Albazi. He caused more damage. Albazi just leaned on him against the fence, but Pantoja's going to be able to get him there. And if he does, when he does, Aleksandre Pantoja is going to work him there. I do look for Pantoja to press Kai Kara-France against the fence, chewing up the clock, slowly working on him and his cardio and his power, and then eventually, not immediately, but eventually choking him out, putting him away. Might be a quick one. Might be, wow, Pantoja really is that guy. But hey. Flyweight division, speaking of it being super packed, Brandon Royval's taking on Joshua Van on short notice. Now, Joshua Van fought last pay-per-view at UFC 315, stepping in short notice to replace Manel Kape at UFC 317. Manel Kape can't make a fight date to save his life. Brandon Royval really is that dude. Remember last he fought, I believe, hold on, let's take a field trip, guys, because I believe he took on Brandon Moreno here. Let's take a old gander at it. No, Tatsuro Taira, split decision, which was a tough fight because Taira's coming with this wrestling style, but the split decision with Brandon Moreno, these two shouldn't have been split. Clearly, Brandon Royval. Then obviously the loss to Pantoja, and then beats Nicolau, Matt Schnell, and Bontorin. Another loss to Pantoja, loss to Moreno, then a win over Kai Kara-France. So like that win over Kai Kara-France, first of all, was absolutely chaos. But this fight's interesting, man, because like we saw Brandon Moreno struggle with what Brandon Royval brought to the table. I have to make sure I get my Brandons right. We saw him struggle. But Joshua Van's not that. He's a young guy. He's getting a really big opportunity coming off of a major win over Bruno Silva where he just ran through him and had a field day. Royval pulls off this insane pace, and it's kind of like a mini boss before you get to the final boss, that is Aleksandre Pantoja, except no wrestling, more like, can you keep up with the cardio? Good luck, kid. I really think this could be a standout performance for Joshua Van. Now, Brandon Royval's going to come in and he's going to wrestle like crazy, yeah. But at the end of the day, we saw how good Joshua Van's takedown defense is against, back over to the web, let me take a peek. I don't remember. I think it was maybe Taira or Ray Suyura, I think it was. Yeah, Ray Suyura. Cody Durden, he beat. Edgar Sharia. The Charles Johnson fight, he was winning and got clipped. And then, Bruno Silva, obviously the last one. But the fact that we have this guy here in Joshua Van, so young, like 24 years old, already fighting the number one contender, because he's taking it on short notice. That's the stuff the UFC loves. In a division where Pantoja really is looking for contenders, 10-0 against the top 10 or something like that, something wild. Hold on, let's pull up the rankings for flyweight. You look at it here, you got Royval number one. So you could presumably say if Joshua Van beats him, he'll be right here. He's already beat Moreno 2 times. Amir Albazi, not that good. Kai Kara-France is fighting this weekend. He's already, Tatsuro Taira needs a win. He's fighting Albazi. Manel Kape can't make a fight. Perez can't make it to the fight. He constantly getting hurt. Amabaev's coming off a loss. He's beat Usyk. Man, that's a lot of this has been cleaned out. Ulanbekov just got a good win last weekend. Joshua Van, and obviously you got Kai Asakura fighting here soon too. I forget who he's fighting. But what you can see there is like he's already cleared out the division. Figueiredo could come back down, but like it's not the same Figueiredo. He's old and the weight cut's going to hurt him. A Joshua Van title shot would be fantastic for Aleksandre Pantoja. So if he can win that, more power to him, and hopefully he gets the next title shot because it's deserving. What else happened on this card, fellas? Let's see. Let's go on down the list real quick here. Beneil Dariush and Renato Moicano. Let's just see how washed Dariush is. Moicano's coming off of that title loss to Islam Makhachev. I believe that was his last fight. Yeah, but he's got real good wins like over Brad Riddell, Drew Dober, Jalen Turner, and Benoit Saint-Denis. So yeah, Islam, Darshok round 1, great. Dariush is great when he wants to be, when he's not, on a giant losing streak of Oliveira and Armantar. You get 2 tough fights, granted. So this will be a little more interesting. I see Moicano winning this. Peyton Talbot versus Felipe Lima. All the hipsters love this fight. I don't know much about Lima. Beat Johns, beat Naimov. I guess I'm going to learn about him this weekend. But, Talbot, he's got that great striking. They're kind of pitting these 2 prospects against each other. Can Talbot bounce back from his first loss to Raul Barcelos? I hope so. But if this Felipe Lima guy is good, I'd like to see him do well. Jack Hermanson and Gregory Rodriguez. Another middleweight fight for Gregory Rodriguez. I don't know what we're doing. Hermanson might be a little scared of the power. Hyder Aemil versus Jose Delgado. Viviana Rujao, Tracy Cortez. Terrence McKinney and Slava Claus, are you good or not fight, Jackson McVeigh versus Christopher Ewart, I don't know nothing about him. Jonathan Denise versus Alvin Hines, then Nico Price is back. Is this his first fight since the Lawler fight? No, well, Thimba Garombo, he's fought a bunch of times since, or he's fought once, beat Morono. But yeah, I mean, overall, the card itself, like, it's very top heavy, and then the prelims kind of fall off. Some fighters I kind of don't know about, which is crazy because I do this every day. Yeah, so who do you think is going to win this fight? Sound off in the comments. Let me know. Fight Finder 7, I started filming it last weekend. I'm going next weekend, and we're going to be filming the U.S. Karate National Championship. But if you want to know more about Fight Fighters, here's episode 4. This is about history of bare knuckle boxing and how it's been reborn with the Police Gazette today. Something you'd like and something you should absolutely check out.